I sat in the conference room, my hands clenched under the table. The lawyer's voice droned on, but my mind was already racing. I had worked at Altman Group for years, long hours, sleepless nights, sacrificing everything to prove myself. Dad knew that. He always said I would take over one day. Then I heard it. Majority control of the Altman Group will go to Evelyn Altman and Chuka Altman. My stomach dropped. What? The room felt too small, the air too thin. My heart pounded in my ears. The lawyer kept reading, his voice distant, almost unreal. I barely heard him when he said my name. Lily Altman will retain 8% shares. 8%? A choked laugh escaped my lips. 8? Not even a quarter? Not even enough to have a real say in the company I built with my father? I turned to Chuka, my half-brother. He sat back in his chair, lips curled into a smug grin. He hadn't spent a day struggling in that office, hadn't earned a single thing, and yet here he was, handed everything like a king on his throne. Evelyn, my stepmother, let out a dramatic sigh, placing a hand on her chest like she actually cared. Oh, Amaka, darling, I know this must be hard for you, but your father? This is a lie? My voice was sharp, cutting through her fake sympathy. The lawyer paused. All eyes turned to me. This can't be my dad's will, I said, my voice shaking. He would never, never do this to me. Silence. The lawyer cleared his throat. Miss Altman, I assure you, they forged it. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. My eyes burned as I looked at Evelyn, then at Chuka. I knew it. They cheated me. Evelyn gasped, pressing a hand to her chest like I had slapped her. Amaka, how could you say such a thing? Chuka just chuckled. You always were dramatic, sis. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, I pushed back my chair and stood. My legs shook, but I forced them to stay strong. I locked eyes with Evelyn first, then Chuka. They thought they had won, but they had no idea what they had just done. I straightened my shoulders and walked to the door. At the last second, I turned back. You'll regret this, I said, my voice cold. Both of you. Then I walked out, my heart pounding with one thought. They stole what was mine. But I'll take it back. My name is Lily Altman, and for most of my life, it was just Dad and me against the world. We worked side by side, building the Altman Group from the ground up. Late nights, early mornings, sacrifices that only we understood. Dad always said I had his business mind and drive. I believed him. Then Evelyn came along. My stepmother waltzed into our lives with fake smiles and empty words, settling into the role of a stay-at-home queen. She never lifted a finger to help, never cared about the company that put food on her table. Running a business? Too stressful. Making decisions? Not her thing. And then there was Chuka, her son. Chuka, who never worked a day in his life. Chuka, who strolled in and out of Dad's office like he owned the place. Never to work, always to collect. Whether it was a new car, an expensive trip, or just some cash, he always had his hand out. And Dad? He gave. He always gave. But I never imagined that one day they'd try to take everything. I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling. The world outside moved on, but mine had stopped the moment that will was read. Dad wouldn't do this to me. He wouldn't. The words kept repeating in my head like a broken record. It had to be a lie, a trick. Maybe the lawyer was in on it, working with Evelyn for a cut. Maybe they forged the will. I picked up my phone, scrolling through numbers, thinking of who to call. A lawyer? Could I fight this in court? But could I even win? Evelyn had money, connections, and a way of twisting things to her advantage. Even if I fought, she would drag me through the mud. I slammed my phone on the table, breathing hard. Number I wasn't going to beg for what was mine. I was going to destroy them. Days turned into weeks. Weeks stretched into months. But the anger, that never faded. At first, I tried to fight it the logical way. I met with lawyers, contesting the will, searching for loopholes, but Evelyn had covered her tracks well. No judge would overturn it without solid proof. Proof I didn't have. I spent hours replaying everything in my head. Did Dad really do this? Or was this Evelyn's work? It didn't make sense. He knew how much I sacrificed for the company. How could he give everything to them? I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. And that anger kept me going. Meanwhile, Chuka took over the company like a spoiled prince finally handed the keys to the kingdom. He walked into meetings late, nodded along to things he didn't understand, and made reckless business decisions that had everyone on edge. For the first few months, he rode on Dad's legacy. Investors were patient, employees gave him the benefit of the doubt, and the media painted him as the young, visionary leader. But soon the cracks started to show. Projects stalled, bad investments piled up, the stock dipped bit by bit. Behind closed doors, board members whispered, was Chuka really fit to lead? And Evelyn? She knew exactly what she was doing. She kept Chuka distracted, lavishing him with praise, pushing him to make flashy moves that looked good on paper, but were financial disasters in reality. While he played CEO, she siphoned money into offshore accounts. Millions vanished under fake transactions, all signed off by Chuka himself. For months, I watched from a distance, waiting. It was 6 months after the will reading when Daniel called me. He used to be one of the best CFOs the company ever had before Evelyn forced him out. He had been watching the numbers. Amaka, you need to see this, he said one afternoon over a call. When the documents arrived in my inbox, my heart nearly stopped. Millions gone. I scrolled through the files, my hands shaking. This wasn't just bad management, this was fraud. And suddenly, I saw it. The way in. I didn't need to fight them directly. I just needed to let them destroy themselves. Revenge isn't about anger, it's about patience. I stopped wasting time being sad. I stopped wondering if Dad really wrote that will. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was making them pay. So I got to work. I spent nights poring over financial records, tracking every missing dollar. The more I dug, the uglier it got. Fake companies, offshore accounts, money vanishing into thin air. Evelyn wasn't just stealing, she was robbing the company blind. And Chuka? He was signing off on everything without a clue. But I didn't rush in. If I stormed in with the truth, Evelyn would cover her tracks, spin her lies, and make me look like the bitter stepsister. I needed to be smart. So, I planted seeds, feeding doubt to Chuka. It started with small, harmless comments. At a charity gala, I clinked my glass against his and smiled. I have to say, Chuka, you're handling things well. Managing a company this big? I don't know how you do it. He puffed up with pride. Of course, Dad trained me well. I tilted my head. I thought Evelyn was handling most of the finances. His smile faded for just a second before he waved me off. She's just helping. Of course, I nodded, sipping my drink. The first crack. Another time at a shareholders meeting, I leaned in as he scrolled through reports. You sign off on all these? I asked, feigning curiosity. Yeah, he muttered, not really looking up. And you check them? That made him pause. My mom handles that part. I shrugged. I mean, she is great with money. That's why she never worked, right? I saw his brow furrow. A second crack. Then when I ran into him at a restaurant, I casually mentioned an article. Did you see that piece on CEOs being blamed for fraud they didn't even know about? Wild, right? Imagine signing something, thinking it's fine, and boom, you're the fall guy. He chuckled, but I saw the shift in his expression. He was thinking. A third crack. Bit by bit, I fed him doubts. And when the first news reports about the company's missing funds came out, I saw it. For the first time, Chuka didn't look so sure of his mother. The first sign that everything was about to collapse came when Chuka barged into my office. His usual arrogance was gone. His shirt was wrinkled, his face pale. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. Amaka, you won't believe this yet, he panted, waving a stack of papers in my face. I leaned back in my chair, masking my satisfaction. What's wrong, Chuka? My mother. She's been moving company money into offshore accounts. Millions, Amaka. Millions! His voice cracked. I don't understand. Why would she do this? How did this even get out? I frowned, pretending to be confused. I had been feeding him doubts for months, and now he was finally seeing what I wanted him to see. I mean, you've seen the news, I said carefully. Regulators are sniffing around. Investors are pulling back. I kept wondering why the numbers weren't adding up. Maybe someone tipped them off? Chuka stiffened, connecting the dots. That's why the stock is crashing. That's why the board is panicking. Someone exposed this. I nodded slowly. I did hear whispers about irregularities in the company's finances. I pulled up some old reports, the same ones I had strategically leaked, and slid them across the desk. Look at this. These transactions started months ago, right after you took over. He grabbed the papers and scanned them, his breathing uneven. She did this. She set me up. Maybe she thought you'd be too blind to notice, I said softly. Just enough to push him over the edge. Chuka's hands curled into fists. She lied to me. His eyes burned with anger. I need answers. I stood, straightening my jacket. Then let's get them. We stormed into Evelyn's office without knocking. She sat behind her oversized mahogany desk, sipping her afternoon tea, looking completely unfazed by the chaos happening outside her doors. The company was falling apart, and she still found time for her rituals. Chuka, darling, you look awful, she said smoothly. Sit down. But Chuka was shaking with rage. He threw the papers onto her desk. Explain this. Evelyn barely glanced at them. Lower your voice, Chuka. Don't do that. Don't act like I'm overreacting, he snapped. These are transfers to offshore accounts, our company's money. You've been siphoning it away for months. Were you ever going to tell me? Evelyn sighed and set down her teacup. I did what needed to be done. Needed? Chuka laughed bitterly. You're robbing the company. Evelyn's gaze flickered to me for a second, but I kept my face blank. She knew I had something to do with this. Chuka, you were never meant to lead, she said coldly. You don't understand how these things work. Your father built this company, but I ensured its survival. You used me, Chuka whispered. You made me CEO so I could take the fall when this all came out? Evelyn didn't even deny it. She leaned forward, voice as calm as ever. And what are you going to do about it? Chuka's jaw tightened. I'll tell the board everything. Evelyn smirked. And how will that help you exactly? She picked up one of the documents and tapped on his signature. You signed off on every single transaction. If I go down, you go down with me. Chuka's face drained of color. I watched him crumble under the weight of the truth. He thought he was in control. He thought his mother loved him. But Evelyn never saw him as anything more than a pawn. You played me, he whispered. Evelyn gave a small shrug. It's business. That was the moment he broke. He turned to me, eyes dark with realization. You were right. His voice was hoarse. She's been sabotaging me this whole time. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Then let's make her pay. It happened fast. The government launched an official investigation. Investors fled. The board panicked. Whispers turned into accusations. Evelyn and Chuka were both drowning in scandal. During an emergency meeting, Chuka tried to explain himself. I didn't know about the offshore accounts. My mother orchestrated everything. Evelyn scoffed. And yet, Chuka, you signed every approval. The board had heard enough. Effective immediately, the chairman announced. Chuka Altman is removed as CEO. Evelyn Altman is stripped of all decision-making authority. The board voted, and the vote was unanimous. A few days later, I invited them to a private meeting. Evelyn sat stiffly, glaring at me. Chuka looked hollow, like a man who had lost everything. I'll take those shares off your hands, I said. At a fair price. Evelyn scoffed. You think you can replace me? I leaned forward, smiling. I already have. After hours of negotiation, they signed the papers. Their power was gone. The Altman Group belonged to me. I stood outside the office the next day, taking in the moment. The weight of the past was finally off my shoulders. When I stepped into my father's office, I took a deep breath. I ran my hands over the chair, his chair, the place where he built his empire, the place where I belonged. Then, slowly, I sat down. And this time, no one could take it from me. The first time I stepped into my father's office as CEO, I felt a sense of peace, like the storm had finally passed. The war was over, and I had won. But just as I was settling in, the family lawyer, Mr. Okafor, walked in, holding a sealed envelope. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet knowing. "This is from your father," he said, placing the letter on my desk. "He wanted you to have it once you became CEO." My fingers trembled as I reached for it. It felt heavier than paper should. I swallowed hard and carefully tore it open. His handwriting was neat, bold, and familiar. I had seen it on so many contracts, so many reports. But this was different. This was personal. It read, "My dearest Amaka, if you're reading this, then you've done it. You fought for this seat. You earned it. Just like I always knew you would. I know you must be wondering why I left the company to Chuka, why I stood by and watched as you were pushed aside. I need you to understand this. I always meant for you to lead. This company was always yours. But if I had handed it to you, Evelyn would have destroyed you. She would have seen you as a threat and crushed you before you even had a chance to fight back. I couldn't let that happen. So I did the one thing that hurt me the most. I let you be betrayed. I let them think they had won, knowing that you would rise, that you would learn, that you would prove yourself not just to them, but to yourself. This was never about fairness. It was a test, and you passed. You are stronger than I ever was. And now they will never be able to take this from you again. Lead well, my daughter. You were always meant to." "Daddy." My hands shook as I put the letter down. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the air had been knocked out of my chest. Everything I had fought for, everything I had suffered, had been part of his plan. He knew. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. All this time, I thought I was fighting for what was stolen from me. I thought I was proving something to the world. But my father, he had already decided my fate. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I leaned back in my chair, his chair, my chair. I had done exactly what he wanted. But this victory, this was still mine. I wasn't just given this power. I took it. I earned it. And now, no one, not Evelyn, not Chuka, not even the ghost of my father, could ever take it away. Then on Chuka, one day, he was shouting in my office, demanding I fix everything. The next, he was gone. No calls, no news, nothing. Some whispered that he fled the country, afraid of the legal mess his mother had left behind. Others said he was hiding, ashamed of how easily he had been played. I didn't care. Evelyn, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. I watched as she sat in the courtroom, her perfect hair a mess, her eyes hollow. She tried to fight, but the evidence was too much. The offshore accounts, the stolen money, it all came crashing down on her. The board had cut ties with her. The investors she once fooled had turned their backs. She was finished. And I? I stood in my father's office. No, my office. The company was mine now, and I was rebuilding it the right way. No more lies. No more backstabbing. Just hard work and smart decisions. I turned to face the large portrait of my father that hung on the wall. His eyes, sharp and knowing, seemed to watch me. A slow smile spread across my lips. "You knew I would rise," I whispered. "They thought they could cheat me. They only made me unstoppable. If you loved this twist, just wait. There's more where that came from. Watch the next revenge story now and see karma strike again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories coming."